It's time now for the Sunday pay-per-view. Joining me is Chief Sports Writer for the Irish Daily Star, Kieran Cunningham. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
And Michael Scully, Chief Sports Writer for the Irish Daily Mirror. Your paper debut, I believe, is it?
Yes, it is, Neil. I'm delighted to be here.
Long-time listener, I imagine?
Yes. Do I have to say that? Yes.
Yeah, you do. Couple of days to Christmas. I know the two of you have kids at home. How did you wangle this 2 days before Christmas, getting out of the house for a few hours?
So it's compulsory. You have to do it.
You have to work.
You have to. When you're summoned, you have to answer the call. So.
Well, I have a couple of Toymaster bags outside there in the studio, so I've been doing a bit of double jobbing this morning. Yeah.
Plenty to get through anyway this afternoon. We will just start with the headlines. First of all, on the back page of the Sunday Independent, a whole new ball game. 5-star United rediscover spark. That's after United's 5-1 win against Cardiff City last night. Anthony Martial celebrating his goal alongside Jesse Lingard. Just tons of reaction to the whole Manchester United situation, from Jose Mourinho to Paul Pogba to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to even Mike Phelan, Mauricio Pochettino. Boom and bust is the headline on the back of the Sunday Times. Man United hit 5 against Cardiff, but Man City trail Liverpool by 4 points after shock home defeat. That was after City's remarkable 3-2 defeat against Crystal Palace yesterday. And also, a sidebar here, Mourinho had no idea Woodward was going to sack him. Jose Mourinho thought he was going to discuss Manchester United's transfer strategy when Ed Woodward used their scheduled Tuesday meeting to sack the Old Trafford manager. I would love to have seen the face on Jose Mourinho when he walks in and is unexpectedly told, there's the door.
Yeah, because he went, apparently travelled from Anfield to London. Like, he goes back to his family in London as much as possible, but he was in his office at Carrington for 9 a.m. the next day, so that makes, and he gets a train, so he must have got a really early train. He turned up unshaven and everything, and apparently after the meeting with Woodward, he composed himself enough to shave, and because he knew all the cameras and photographers, everything would be there. So
elsewhere, there's a couple of sports pages this afternoon on the Sunday Business Post. They have a big year in sport review, big scalps, big prizes and big name exits. That's by Barry J. White, and it's a great picture of Jacob Stockdale going over for his try against the All Blacks last month. Back page of the Irish Sun on Sunday. Rue Joyce, Solskjaer says Waza's text sparked rout. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got a couple of text messages from Wayne Rooney last night before his first game for United. Just with a few tips on how to handle some of the players that Rooney remembered from his time at the club. On the back of the Sunday World, it's beginning to look at Klopp-like Xmas. Liverpool's 4 points clear as Pep's turkeys get stuffed. That is after Liverpool went 4 clear on Friday night with their 2-0 win against Wolves, and Man City followed it up yesterday with that pretty shock defeat against Crystal Palace. Back page of the Star on Sunday. Ollie not sorry. Solskjaer off to a flyer and says ex-United bosses had their chance. He said yesterday afternoon after that game that he didn't really feel sorry for any of the managers who had been sacked because it just pretty much is the business these days. On the back of the Irish Daily Mail, thanks Jose, Pogba salutes axed boss for trophies and helping me to improve. Paul Pogba is been gracious enough in the wake of Jose Mourinho's exit, saying that he's helped him a lot over the last couple of years, bringing him back to the club.
He wasn't gracious after a few hours after he exited.
For a few minutes.
For a few minutes. Right, yeah.
On the Irish Day, on the Sunday Mirror, happy holidays. Rooney's message helps new boss inspire Reds. Ander Herrera there celebrating his goal in the opening half of that game, putting United 2-0 up at the time. But there's no money for the January sales, apparently, says Simon Mullock. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer isn't going to have anything to spend in January.
That's an interesting one, because it had been reported elsewhere. They would have 50 million sterling to spend, so it's an interesting one to say that. But it might be no harm to say, you've spent serious money on this squad in the last 5 years. You can try coaching them to improve. And
also as well, if they're going to have a new coach coming in, probably a new coach coming in the summer. What's the point in signing someone who in 6 months' time could be surplus to requirements? And then finally, back page of the Sunday People, it's a jolly Ollie day. Game of loans, no Xmas cheer for Ollie's, he's told, just loan signings for you. So as we spoke about there just a moment ago as well, there's not going to be any money for Solskjaer to have in the January transfer window, but the people are saying anyway he might be able to get a couple of temporary deals, just like his own deal with United.
I mean, that surely makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
I think it does.
If you're talking about 5 months in the job, you've got to leave it to the next man.
Just as long as he doesn't sign a lot of players from Molde for a few months or anything like that. I know these guys.
Yeah, but the only thing, like they have 60 scouts in their operation, so they're clearly tracking players all the time, and at the same time, I can see why you'd say wait till the next manager, but they're 11 points off. After yesterday, actually, I need to check the league table, but they were very much in touch with top 4 if they got, especially the fixture list is quite kind to them. They're also in the last 16 to get the Champions League against PSG, and PSG can be very flaky. So I don't think they should be giving it up on this season. Like, I've seen stuff that Solskjaer just tied them over, but United need more ambition than that. Like particularly with the Pochettino thing, I think that could unsettle Tottenham a bit.
Yeah, and at the moment now they're only 8 points off the top 4 after Chelsea lost yesterday.
And you can't trust Arsenal either, and you're not sure where Chelsea are.
We thought we could trust them there for a little while.
Yeah, so I think
the last week or two has shown us.
That's why I think United should be going all out for the top 4, especially the manager coming in wants Champions League football. He doesn't want to be playing Europa League next year. So if it needs a big January signing, then go for it. And they can, you always get this thing thrown out there, there's no value in January. Liverpool got Van Dijk in January. They got Sturridge, Coutinho and Suarez in January. That's just one club. In the past, United got Vidic and Evra in January, 2 of their best defenders the last 15 years.
And I think a lot of people balked last January, or it was end of December really, actually, when the news broke. It was 75 million Liverpool were signing Van Dijk for.
Yeah.
That now looks like an absolute snake.
Bargain of the century, yeah. And, because the Van Dijk signing is very interesting because of the way it shows the way Liverpool operate, that they track 30 centre halves. And the way they operate now, the guy who does the data in Boston with the Fenway Group, Michael Edwards, the sporting director, and Klopp, and they don't send like the old-fashioned way you send your scout and then the manager, he recommends somebody and the manager goes and have a look at them and they might look at them a couple of times. They track them for 15 to 20 games because I think that's the only way you have an idea of a player's real quality and his consistency. So the Van Dijk thing was, like, a lot of Liverpool fans were wondering why there wasn't a plan B when Southampton refused to sell him in the summer of 2017.
The plan B was buy him in 6 months.
The plan was wait 6 months or a year if it needs to be, because they went through everything and said, by a mile, this is the outstanding candidate. So when they sold Coutinho, they knew they were going to get Van Dijk. And I think, I'm not so sure about the goalkeeper thing, but that did give them the funds for Alisson, more or less. But, there was always a chance they would go big in a goalkeeper. But I think he was going to give Karius one last chance because Karius was the goalkeeper he wanted. He'd scouted him and he knew him in Germany. But, it does show up this thing, that you should go after the player you really want. Not make do. Even if it says it means waiting a year. Like Liverpool, for example, the Kaitis transfer as well. They had to wait a year. They agreed the deal and the fee with Leipzig, but they still waited a year before he could actually join the club because they scouted him so intensively they figured it was the guy he needed. So I think United, have to get up to speed. That's the way top clubs are operating now. And you read stuff here. Mourinho was only manager in the Premier League to get rid of GPS units. He seemed to be reacting against a lot of sports science and a lot of modern methods.
I hadn't even realised that, actually. And it was even funny, we were just talking earlier on, it was the first time, yesterday was the first time this season United outran their opposition in a match.
They're the only club in the Premier League, they're the only club in the Premier League who aren't operating the GPS system, isn't that right?
Yeah, they did have it. He got rid of it a couple of weeks ago, apparently. Yeah, he didn't believe in it. Might be still in the job if he did believe it.
Yeah, that's incredible. But
what is interesting is as well that if Solskjaer doesn't have any money to spend, a couple of weeks ago Roy Keane was on TV saying the players aren't there. These are mediocre players. So it'll be interesting to see can he turn them around. I think the quality's there.
Yeah, it's certainly there. I think it mightn't be there to win the Premier League title, but it's certainly there to be one of the top 4 or 5 teams.
I know, and I actually, it gets my back when you hear this stuff. The quality isn't there, or we need new players all the time. The managers, the reason managers and coaches spend years and years getting A licenses and pro license and getting experience is because they're getting coaching expertise to improve players. And you look at some of the players at Liverpool, the way they've improved. You look at how Fernandinho, for example, or Raheem Sterling have improved under Guardiola. You read, there was a great piece in, is it called the Players' Tribune that Harry Kane was involved in? Yeah, he wrote about Pochettino, about the work he's done with him, and like Harry Kane was out on loan at Millwall. Like it was up in the air whether he'd have any future at Tottenham, but he did really intensive work with him. Like that's, like virtually all the players in that Manchester United squad are international players. You know, they were coveted by a lot of different clubs. Like there's a lot more in them. Like I saw, it might be David Walsh there that made a reference to it taken 5 years to turn things around for United. I think
Souness said it.
Yes,
Souness says it here. It's actually at the very bottom. As I said at the start, United need 5 years at least to fix the mess they've managed to get into.
Look where Liverpool were a few years ago. Liverpool were known
2 years ago.
Yeah, so you can turn things around very, very quickly.
I think in the Sunday Times as well, Jonathan Norcroft is saying that one of the tipping points was that Anthony Martial was thinking that was saying that this is going to be his last contract at the club, and you know, the owners, Ed Woodward and the owners were going, no, we can't have this. You know, this is going to be a brain drain to our top players. So, you know, you can see why they acted. I'm not surprised. I don't know how Jose is surprised. If he's thinking that they're going to hold on until United are out of Europe. Yeah,
and I quite like the way, I kind of like just the layout of the way the Sunday Times have done it's a kind of a two-page spread almost on it. On the left-hand side, on the left page of Jonathan Norcroft, and essentially he's talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and how he's the nice guy come in, he's putting the gentle hand on the shoulder, telling them they're all great players. And then on the flip side, you've Graeme Souness doing his thing of being, you know what, the players need to have a look at themselves. They don't have the players, you know, they need so much time to get it right. He still says Mourinho should have gone at that stage, but I just liked the layout.
The contrast,
on it, the way it was presented.
No, they're two good pieces, and they're two of the better pieces on the whole affair. And I find it interesting as well because there's always this to and fro between Liverpool and United fans on social media and sniping at each other. But one of the things you see United fans do a lot on social media is throw back the fact that Klopp hasn't won any trophies at Liverpool. He's just great at hugs and everything, and Mourinho's win percentage. But you read then what Solskjaer has to say, and he sounds very like Klopp. Like it's the kind of stuff, you know, that it's on about we're the best club in the world, the best people in the world. He's mentioned the coaches, cleaning lady, chef. I'm not here for me, I'm here for the team and the club. You know, it's all about inclusivity and reconnecting with everybody. And it says earlier in the piece, Solskjaer's first job is to put a smile back on the face of a brooding club, and if that's all he achieved in his 5 months, it would be a valuable sojourn. And I think you can't underestimate that. Like Liverpool have won one trophy in 12 years. And that was a League Cup on penalties against Cardiff City. It absolutely meant nothing. Like getting to the Champions League final is way ahead of that.
Yeah.
Like people get too obsessed with trophies. Like these days, particularly the League Cup and the FA Cup to a fair extent are way down the pecking order. And you can't just evaluate what Klopp has done for Liverpool in terms of
I can't remember who tweeted it during the week. It was a very interesting tweet. It was just kind of along the lines, it was listing off all the things that Mauricio Pochettino has done over the last couple of years, and it says, having said all that, until he wins the League Cup, he's nothing really, is he?
That's what I mean. Like, because that's been brought up by Pochettino. He's won nothing to Tottenham, but you look at where he started. Like,
he's taken them from 5th and 6th to 3rd, but it's a culture change.
It's culture change. Yeah, and if you look at it in terms of spending, they shouldn't be near where they are. But the other thing is, he's made people happy that follow the clubs, and so has Klopp. Like Mourinho won trophies with United, but their fans were miserable.
And the players were miserable.
Yeah, the fans and the players were miserable. They didn't enjoy the football. So even though they had a couple of trophies, Liverpool fans in Tottenham have enjoyed the last couple of years. They've enjoyed the ride. And sometimes you have to enjoy the ride. Like, it's not always the team that wins that is transformative. Like, the Netherlands team in 1974-78 didn't win the World Cup, but they're far more fondly remembered than the West Germany and Argentina team to beat them in the finals. The most fondly remembered team in 1982 World Cup is Brazil, who went out in the second phase. It's not Italy who won the competition. You know, sometimes it's it's about more. The joy matters too.
This is the problem when United went for Mourinho. You know, this is a job Mourinho wanted for a very long time. United kind of held off. Bobby Charlton, there's a quote in one of the papers there, back in 2012, saying he's not a coach for us. I think it was after he stuck his finger in Tito's eye in the derby, and you know, I think he's proved over time that he is not a Manchester United manager. You know, it's been a dark cloud over Old Trafford for a long time, and you contrast that with Anfield and Klopp, and And even you can see with Solskjaer in the space of a week, almost a few days, he's kind of transformed things, but he's also transformed his own image. He came in there, a lot of people were questioning. I know they only beat Cardiff, but he hasn't put a foot wrong. His pre-match press conferences, people kind of flicked a switch. There was a lot of optimism there. So Marcus Rashford, after the match yesterday, the first thing he mentioned was the positivity that was present.
Yeah, and I think as Graeme Souness says here, United have looked for the antidote to the toxic relationship between Mourinho and his players, so they've gone for the polar opposite. They've replaced Mr. Confrontational with Mr. Nice Guy. That will be the first task for Solskjaer, getting the players back on side, because Mourinho wasn't getting the most from the squad.
And I think you saw with the reaction yesterday that there's been a craving for
just letting the
fans
shackles
and the media, for just to watch United look like they're enjoying football again. And so a fair bit of the coverage because of that is a bit over the top, because you go back to when Moyes was pushed out the door and Giggs came in as interim or as caretaker manager, and they beat Norwich City 4-0 in their first game, and there was kind of similar stuff around that.
Everyone gets the bounce.
Yeah, and then quickly became apparent that Giggs mightn't have a notion, to be honest. We'll see how he pans out with Wales, but so there was always a chance of this bounce because the fixture list is quite kind. They're probably the kindest Christmas programme of any of the big clubs. So they could be going into like they play Liverpool again in February at Old Trafford. They could be coming into that game in a decent position, So that would be an interesting game then.
My thoughts are with Molde here, the statement of trust. Their manager has been taken away. It's a little bit like the Irish situation. What if he is spectacularly good?
Yeah.
And United go, hang on a second. Now, I know it's a bit of a long shot, but imagine, hang on here, we want this guy. It's a bit like the Mick McCarthy goes and wins the Euros. Hang on a second, what do we do now? We've got our Stephen Kenny, Mick McCarthy situation.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting just to see if he does very well.
Yeah, it will. You would... There aren't many Cardiff fans in Ireland, but just from looking at the reaction to a couple of them, they weren't very impressed with him at Cardiff. So
no,
maybe it's
although I suppose at Cardiff he probably had to do a lot more than just the gentle hand on the shoulder and tell them they're all great.
Yeah, but a lot of it does come back to the players. If the players suddenly decide to stop sulking and earn their money and show a bit of tactical discipline, like say Pogba's example, prime example, who just didn't seem to follow instructions under Mourinho. Like, he just seemed to be playing his own game in his own head, in his own world. And I find the Souness stuff interesting because when you watch Souness, he's a brilliant pundit, but it's clear that players annoy him. I think or maybe it's just people annoy him. I'm not sure.
Maybe
one of the two.
Yorkie studio.
Yeah, but he's a few references here, and he kind of touches on that. Like I said, Mourinho had lost patience with the players, not just at United, but at Real Madrid and Chelsea as well. He stopped being a man manager, which was good in his early years. He's felt he was big enough to go down a road that no longer works with players' confrontation. I think he's referencing his own career there, that he was quite confrontational. But he said, there's further proof players are all powerful now. When I'm asked if I go back to management, that's the reason I wouldn't last 5 minutes. The tail wags the dog now. The manager's the boss in name only. Which...
But he doesn't mention, like, he reckons Pochettino, this might be the job for him. He mentions Zidane, but it's not the job for him. He doesn't actually point towards an actual... Yeah,
to who actually is the...
Who could be the manager.
But there's nobody you can pick and you'll say they'll definitely do it. There's nobody out there, because it's a job with different pressures to virtually every other job, because Pochettino at Tottenham, he could stay there for the next 5 seasons, not win a trophy. If he gets into the Champions League every year, he'll be regarded as a huge success. If he goes to United for 5 years, he has to be in the Champions League every year. He's expected to win the league at least once, and he's expected to contest for the Premier League. So the pressure...
he has the ambition to go for it. Do you?
Huh?
I think he has the ambition to go for it.
Pochettino?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm convinced. Yeah, from the way he talked the other day, he wants it.
Yeah. Even just to shift on to Pochettino, one thing you came in talking about today, which you enjoyed as well, is, it's called, The Boy Who Would Be King. Just a very interesting profile of Pochettino in the Mail on Sunday by Rob Draper, who actually went all the way over to Rosario and Buenos Aires to do this. And it just talks about, coming from the town of Murphy, Rosario as well, which is quite interesting. And his playing career from Newell's Old Boys, Argentina, being remembered as the man who tripped up Michael Owen in 2002
Yeah, no, because it was great that they backed Rob Draper or sent him over to go to, because it was a great idea to go to Argentina and dig out, story to the background. Because
will you be cutting this one out and bringing it into the office on a Monday morning? Going, well, look, this is what you can get if you send people away.
But it is rare these days because obviously budgets are tighter in all sorts of media outlets. And it is good that somebody's decided this is worth it. Even it's a spread among many other spreads, but they think this is the big story. And I think one thing, the Murphy where he's from, it's named after an Irish immigrant, John James Murphy, and I was curious what the population was, so I looked it up, and it's 3,300. It's fascination that the amount of people who are very prominent in sport to come from tiny places. Like you look at Joe Schmidt is from somewhere, I think it's around 2,000, population 2,000. Ireland captain Rory Best is from Points Pass, which is about 1,500 people.
I think literally the final line right now, Pochettino might be the world's most valuable farmer.
Yeah, farmer. Like Seamus Coleman's from Killybegs, a couple of thousand people. Martin O'Neill's from Kilray, a couple of thousand people. Like there's a lot of very prominent people that I don't know, does it give them a certain drive or hunger to prove yourself when you do come from such a small place? But there's interesting stuff in here, like Roberto Cincini. People probably remember he played alongside Pochettino of the 2002 World Cup, but he has he mentions here about just his character, and one of the things is that he says is Mauricio is very easy to talk to. He's transparent. He has good values. We call them campechanos, good-natured, down to earth. And if you saw that press conference the other day where the press officer was trying to stop the questions about United. So
he's just sitting there smiling back.
But he was saying, you're the star of this press conference. He took it in a stride. Like some other people would look really uncomfortable in that position.
Would nearly be summoning the press officer.
Yeah, but he was kind of enjoying this. Yes, look, just get on with it. Like he didn't get let it get to him.
But you'd imagine they had the little chat beforehand to say, we're shutting this down. So. Yeah, but you're right. He is that kind of a character. He seems very calm, relaxed. I remember when he came to Southampton first and being hugely impressed by his progress so quickly, even though it took him a while to learn the language.
And I remember at the time we were all thinking, what do I have to do? Nigel Atkins is doing a brilliant job.
That's right, yeah. There was huge controversy over that. There was,
Because there's interesting stuff, and it refers back to what we were saying about Solskjaer and talking to everybody at the training ground, the woman in the canteen and the cleaners, etc. And Ricky Villa is talking about Pochettino. He says, Mauricio is the spirit of an amateur, by which I mean every day he says to the players, forget about money, play from your heart. I know everyone talks about winning trophies of your manager, but he improves every player he works with. For me, that's the main point of a manager. And that's what they need. And that goes to the Klopp thing, the Guardiola thing again. That's Mourinho's thing was, I win more Premier Leagues than all the other managers put together. Respect, that kind of stuff. But he's on about improving players. That's his big thing, and that's where winning trophies eventually comes from. It also references the influence of Bielsa. Bielsa, the Leeds United manager, who's had a massive influence on him, and on Guardiola, and that just his style is very much based on how he played for back in the day when Bielsa was his coach, which is an interesting one. Also trains players really hard. It works the bollocks off them, as a quote there. So.
There's a good one there when he followed them to Espanyol, and he obviously said he got caught up in the trappings of fortune and fame, and he wasn't playing at the same level he was playing in back home, and he was called aside. Bielsa went through him, and he said it left him in tears, and he asked for a second chance, and he gave it to him, and his career progressed from then. Also, very good as well. The piece starts off with talk of the super scout who found him at Neil's Old Boys.
Jorge Griffa.
Knocking on his parents' door at 2 a.m, wanting to have a look at this young 14-year-old that they had heard about, and being allowed to look into his bedroom and saying, what legs? A footballer's legs. And in the Pochettino is still asleep, so they basically gave him a trial on the basis of seeing what legs he had. It's interesting, but great piece.
Yeah, it's just really it's just conclusive as well, and long feathered by Alex Ferguson. Now it seems United's executive chairman Ed Woodward, his courage in playing attacking, attractive football that fits an English model and promoting youth as well, which is one thing that we've seen in Spurs. He just ticks so many boxes.
And then you see numerous pieces are referencing Paul Mitchell at Leipzig, who could come in as United's director of football, they're saying, and he's worked with Pochettino at Espanyol and Southampton.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the perfect fit between the two of them.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be very interesting to see over the next 6 months how the speculation affects Spurs, because the last few years I think they've always been much better in the second half of the season, and they even kind of hint at it here. You were mentioning how much he runs his players, runs the bollocks off them. But Pochettino trains players all season at full intensity. He believes that though there's an injury risk, it bears fruit after Christmas, which is borne out by performances. And it probably is something we have seen over the last few years.
Definitely.
There was a lot of talk about Klopp doing that, wasn't there? And there was a lot of Liverpool players breaking down, certainly at the start of his reign. That seems to have been curtailed now, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, because how he would deal with somebody like Pogba, I'd be curious, because there's a piece with Pogba. It might be in the Mail as well. I can't remember. Yeah, it is. Can anyone solve the Pogba puzzle? Yeah. But what interests me is, it goes into a lot of, like he's a bit flash and he's a bit of bling, and how much he spends on his watches and all that kind of rubbish. It doesn't really matter. Like a lot of players do this kind of stuff. But it also is teetotal. Like, so this, this kind of bugs me when I hear the Roy Keane stuff. Like Roy Keane saying a lot of them are poor human beings or something. He said about the United players. And, he's always having a go at modern players. But like Roy, when he goes into it in his first autobiography, for many of his years as a professional footballer, there's a great myth that when Alex Ferguson came in, that he got rid of the drinking culture at Old Trafford, because a few of the big drinkers left, but it was there for years and years afterwards. And Keane writes about that, like coming out in the weeks, just a couple of days before games or big games, often, there was serious boozing sessions, and and he calling out Pogba and others for being unprofessional. How unprofessional is that? Like at Ipswich Town, in his second autobiography, Keane details. He would get a bad result, say, in a Tuesday game, and he wouldn't go to training until Saturday because he was. He wouldn't be seen again until they played a game on Saturday because he was sulking. He didn't turn up at training. Like, how unprofessional is that? So I look at this guy, and he doesn't drink, and he lives his life. He prepares properly in many ways, but because he dances around the dressing room and does funny handshakes, he's vilified.
Yeah.
Sorry, just as a humorous aside, there's a nice little piece by Tommy Conlon in the Sunday Indo, where he talks about Mark Allen.
Oh, Mark Allen. I did see that,
who basically went drinking for all of last week.
In between the sessions.
And still won the Scottish Open.
Sessions.
Yeah, and won the Scottish Open, having finished runner-up the week before to Ronnie O'Sullivan, pocketed 75 grand, and went on the beer and won the next tournament. So.
And I think
maybe
the one evening he didn't actually go out on the beer with the following morning.
He had 3 or 4.
Yeah. He felt absolutely awful, he says, and the advice was just go out, have a couple of settlers, and come back. You'll feel much better for it tomorrow. But that's it for Manchester United.
Could I just say the greatest trick Man United have ever pulled is Liverpool have gone 4 points clear at the top of
we haven't talking about it.
We haven't mentioned them. Man City losing.
Well, sorry, Liverpool fans, we're actually going to be talking about Everton and Seamus Coleman after the break. But stand by for a couple of moments. We're just going to take a quick break and catch the news with Adrian Harmon. Don't go away.
Off the ball on News Talk. Join that conversation. Text us on 53106. Texts cost 30 cents.
At Centra, we have all your last-minute seasonal favourites and everything you need to save time to help you celebrate Christmas. And we've extended opening hours for when you need us most. Thank you from all our staff for your continued support, and we wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas. Centra. Live every day.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, Christmas festival is nigh. 'Tis the place that makes you jolly, 7 great ones to make you sigh. Hear the famous festive cheer, join your friends from near and far, and thereof the chorus rises, let the festivities begin.
Leopardstown Christmas Festival, 26th to 29th of December. Tickets on leopardstown.com.
I saw Santa on Christmas Day, and he has a big beard. A big white one. Yeah. And he's wearing red stuff. And he had a Christmas hat on as well. He came down the chimney. He left a big bag of presents, like a huge one. He doesn't go on holiday. No.
Never seen Santa? Should have gone to Specsavers.
How does he fit down the chimney?
Now you have 3 great reasons to switch your family to VHI Healthcare. We're leading the way in family healthcare with our member-only access to VHI Swift Care clinics, faster access to our VHI Paediatric clinic, and now you can get 25% off all kids under 18 on all our One plans until February 28th. Switch today. Call 1890 444444 or search VHI One plans. VHI Healthcare. When you need us, we're there. Terms and conditions apply. VHI Healthcare DAC, trading as VHI Healthcare, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to VHI Insurance DAC for health insurance in Ireland.
Samsung American fridge freezers are packed with brilliant technology. From total no frost to on-demand filtered water and crushed ice at the touch of a button. For more information, go online to powercity.ie.
Thursday the 17th of April 2014. My whole life was shattered and my heart was broken when my worst nightmare had been confirmed. Early Saturday, Kieran was brought to me on a stretcher. I tried to hold him on my best side, with total disbelief. None of this made any sense. I spent that night with Kieran, talking to him and making the most of our final hours together. I didn't realise I would never see him again. The other driver was drunk.
The Millionaire Raffle is back and better than ever with 1 millionaire guaranteed and over 5,500 cash prizes. With our best win odds ever, you can win it.
Cool.
Your half-brother can win it.
Excellent.
Your karate instructor can win it. Your granny who's learning ukulele can win it.
Oh dear.
Even your opera-singing neighbour can win it. Just get a Millionaire Raffle ticket before New Year's Day and you can win it. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie.
On 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is News Talk.
Good afternoon, I'm Adrian Harman. Gardaí have launched a murder investigation following the shooting dead of Eric Fowler in West Dublin. The 34-year-old was gunned down outside his home in Blanchardstown last night. A car believed to have been used in the incident was later found burnt out in Clonee. Investigating officers believe 2 people were involved in the killing and are looking into possible links to an ongoing gangland feud. Garda Superintendent Liam Carlin describes what happened.
Approximately 7 p.m. last night, Gardaí responded to a call of a shooting at Blakestown Cottages. They arrived very shortly after and they found a male in his 30s lying in the driveway of one of the cottages. He had been shot multiple times. He was pronounced dead at scene. Obviously, a murder investigation has now commenced and an incident room has been set up at Blanchardstown Guard Station.
2 people arrested over the disruption at Gatwick Airport in London have been released without charge. The pair were arrested on Friday night accused of illegal use of drones, but police say they've fully cooperated and are no longer suspects. More than 100,000 travellers were affected when drones caused flights at the airport to be grounded. More than 220 people are dead and dozens are missing after a tsunami hit part of Indonesia. The wave was caused by a volcano and swept away homes on the Sunda Strait. The Department of Foreign Affairs has set up a helpline for anyone who has concerns for Irish citizens in the region. And 1 in 10 retail workers suffered physical abuse, while 44% have been subject to verbal abuse. Unions are demanding action from employers and the government to ensure workers are adequately protected. A survey carried out by Mandate found the main issues behind the problem include refund policies, sales policies like checking ID, customers being drunk and understaffing. General Secretary of Mandate, John Douglas, says action needs to be taken to deal with the issue. That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors. For all your last minute gift ideas. Rugs, gift cards, beds, flooring and much more.
Rain in places, but overall a lot of dry weather today. Highest temperatures ranging from 6 or 7 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Very welcome back to the Sunday paper review here on Off the Ball this Sunday. Neil Treacy filling in for Joe Malloy this afternoon. Kieran Cunningham and Michael Scully alongside with me for the rest of the paper review. There was one thing, Kieran, when you came in, the first thing you mentioned to me was a pretty brilliant profile of Seamus Coleman by David Snade in the Irish Daily Mail.
Yeah, I think it's comfortably the best piece in any of the Sunday papers today. And it stands out for a number of reasons. Like David did a similar piece to this a few months ago before Glenn Whelan's last game for Ireland, the friendly against Northern Ireland, where he talked to a lot of people who knew, who played with or know or have worked with or are friendly with Glenn over the years, and to build up a portrait of him. And it's you know, a profile can be dismissed very easily because sometimes it's just seen as you're not able to get an interview and just do a profile of somebody. But an in-depth profile has a lot going for it, that it often tells you far, far more than an actual interview. Yeah. And this way, like this, I'd love to know when David first had the idea or first started work on this, because I would say he's been getting bits and pieces together for a long, long time for it, that he knew, you know, obviously it's to tie in with the 10 years next month since Seamus went from Sligo to Everton. So he's talked to 10 different people, and you know, the list is long, like Bill Ellaby, who was the Everton player liaison officer, Phil Neville, Tim Howard, and Tim Howard's now at Colorado Rapids in the US, so we tracked him down there. Alan Stubbs, Kevin Sheedy, Brian Dorian, who's from Killybegs, St Catherine's Club, Leon Osmond, David Myler, Ian Holloway, who managed Shamey when he was in loan at Blackpool, and Ronald Koeman, who had him at Everton and who's now the Netherlands manager, and he tracked him down for stuff. So there's just so much detail in there and so much work, and it's great to see that somebody has the time and put that much effort into one piece, and it builds up a picture. And like, there's a few little things in here about him. Like David Ellaby, he was describing him as a second dad. He was a guy who first met him, you know, kind of dealt with him when he went to Everton.
He starts off with.
Yeah, and he just said one of the things that he wanted to live. Ellaby says about Shamey, he wanted to. He was with Rachel Cunningham, who's now married to Shamey, and there were two things they wanted. They wanted to live close to the training ground, and most players want, you know, they want a mansion in Cheshire, and they don't really care, but they got their training ground. But like, that's how seriously he was taking the whole thing, and he wanted to be close to the airport so he could go home whenever he got a chance. And I know he's not from, like, he's only from a couple of parishes away from me in Donegal, and Seamus goes home a hell of a lot. And I know what kind of character, like it points out a few things, like Phil Neville and him have a particularly close relationship because Seamus' brother Stevie has cerebral palsy, and he represented Ireland at the Special Olympics. And Neville's daughter Isabella has a CP as well. So they kind of bonded over that, and they're still very close.
Yeah, and like I think that's what's so good about the profile, that in particular, and his friendship with Neville.
Yeah.
And how they would have bonded over it. That is something, you know, I would say most people, definitely me anyway.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, definitely. And I know, like, there's a lot of, you know, charities or fundraisers of various sorts at home for different things. And the amount of times you see that there's, you know, there might be an auction and there's a Seamus Coleman signed jersey, or these contributed in some way. Sometimes it's public, sometimes it isn't. That he helps out a hell of a lot, and he's really down there as a guy. Like, I remember 2 years ago there was my brother died from cancer quite young, and there was a Gaelic football match 2 years ago to mark the 20th anniversary of his passing, and it was a couple of teams playing, but no, Seamus' uncles would have played for a local GAA club, Seamus and Noel Carr, and they were playing, and Seamus was in the pub afterwards, and like, he just mixes, like, he's just an ordinary, he still comes across as a grounded fella. There's no airs and graces.
He's a very un-Premier League footballer, Premier League footballer.
Yeah, like, he's the most old school. Like, I'm actually surprised he's wearing blue boots there, because you just expect he would be wearing black boots for some reason.
Yeah, there's a couple of good recollections there from Brian Dorian, his friend.
Yeah,
including the Friday
treat.
Yeah,
I did like that shit.
He says when he'd come home, we'd car share. He had this little Mazda 121, and Seamus would have his can of Coke, sausage sandwich with red sauce, God forgive me the smell of it, and a packet of Tato crisps. He doesn't drink or anything like that, so every Friday without fail he'd have the same treat. But when he came back from Everton, he wouldn't touch it.
Yeah,
he had evolved. And but there's another good one. Just when he was making his first team debut, away to Benfica in the Europa League, October 2009, it was a disaster. Everton lost 5-0, and Coleman played left back in a makeshift starting 11, coming up against a promising young winger from Argentina. Then Dorian says, Shamey told me how Angel Di Maria did a drag back with one foot and took it away with the other, and by the time he knew what happened, he was 10 yards away. Dorian laughs. Yeah. That could have been the end of him, but of course he...
Yeah, like I remember
much bigger things than that.
Seamus is a first cousin of Desi Farrell, who would have, won All Ireland Dublin, formerly the GPA, etc. And I remember talking to Desi over the years about, and he would come up in conversation like from when he was about 9 or 10. Oh. Like in both soccer and Gaelic football, particularly Gaelic football, because there was a lot of Gaelic football in family connections to top class footballers. So it always seemed like he was going to be somebody special. Like he would have been centre half back in Gaelic football. Like it had been a year or two ahead of Michael Murphy and the Donegal development squads. And he has talked before about how he'd love to go back, he had an intention of going back to play GAA for Killybegs. And I wonder, is the broken leg, because of that, will that go against him? Because I think maybe his retirement age will be pushed back because he might feel he's making up for lost time now. There's one thing that's not broached in this now. He's getting quite a lot of flack from Everton fans lately. I was wondering, would that be dealt with? But
I was just going to say, it does feel like there's an interesting few months ahead of him. Yeah, and I know you guys have been debating a lot with different people on who should play, him or Mark Doherty for Ireland. Mm-hmm. You'd hope that Mick McCarthy will be able to accommodate both of them on the right side.
How does he accommodate both?
He's got to try, hasn't he? How do you leave out both of those guys?
When he started out at Everton, he was played on the right wing. Even though he joined as a right back, Moyes initially played him in the right wing, and I think he might have played in the right wing at Blackpool as well. So,
he made a huge impact.
Yeah, you could see an argument for Mick thinking that a combination of Doherty and Coleman on the right wing would give you both an attacking edge and defensive solidity, because both can defend and both are adept at going forward. Yes,
I remember just another side. I remember watching Matt Doherty in the Northern Ireland fiasco that night, and the amount of times he would throw his arms up in the air asking for a pass. He had loads of space on the right hand side, and nobody would pass him the ball. And I just sat there in the first half going, "What a waste! What a waste of talent! This guy is burning up the Premier League, and nobody will pass him the ball."
Yeah, they used it as a breakout quote here, and what I found was interesting was Alan Stubbs, and he was saying, he says, "Did we ever think that Seamus would go on and do the things he's done?" I would have to say that my answer would be no. And I think that's one thing that's actually cost him a little bit, in that, like Martin O'Neill often talked him up as being world class. He's not world class. No, he's a great player. No, he's got a great attitude, and he's a good player. And he's put in some top class performances. But I think I always remember going back to when Moyes was there. Moyes mentioned that he was playing catch up, because you have the kids that came through academy structures. That were there from their early teens or something. They get a hell of a lot of coaching from top class coaches. And he says Seamus was a bit off because the level of coaching he was getting in Ireland wasn't at that level. And I think you sometimes see that now, that technically he's not up there with some of the players, but his attitude makes up for it often. But I think he has had a tough time since coming back from the broken leg. Like if you search his name after games on social media, particularly if Everton aren't having a good day, he's often getting a lot of it. And you saw that in his reaction when he scored
that goal. Yeah,
and he said that, I think he kind of talked about that. He was getting a bit of heat.
Yeah.
So I think it's not just the physical recovery is a challenge, it's a psychological one as well. I would say that, that he mightn't necessarily have the confidence he had before the leg break, and it might take him till next season to get back to
the idea of the injury kind of playing on your mind. Going in for a 50-50 ball or something like that.
Could be. And
just on that kind of determination that he always has. There was so many great little stories in this piece. There's one from David Myler, and he's talking about talking about, I think it was an Ireland under-19 game or something.
Playing against Shane Duffy, was it?
Yeah, sorry, I think it was Sunderland and Everton playing an under-19s game. Saying Shane Duffy was playing centre-half. I didn't really know him at the time. I was trying to talk to Seamus during the game. He was completely ignoring me. The ball would go out of play and I'd be asking him, how are things? How are the family? How are you getting on? Yeah. Nothing. Big Duffy shouted over, will you ever just speak to him? Seamus said, no, I'll talk to him after the match.
But it's funny his focus is amazing, isn't it? His huge focus.
But it's funny how normal he is then straight after a game, because I was just thinking of this morning, I completely forgotten about it. Remember the Noel King when he managed Ireland against Germany 5 years ago? Was that, I don't know wherever it was, Cologne or whatever, but Killybegs were playing Glen Swilly in the Donegal County final the following Sunday. I remember going down to the mix zone for quotes afterwards, and like Killybegs hadn't been in that final in quite a while, and he came through the mix zone and he came over and said, "Oh, you go to the county final on Sunday," and this was just after playing World Cup, playing Germany. Because this is what does it mind, like, which is very unusual. So.
Yeah, you do get the feeling that he's a guy who's just lived the dream, don't you? Yeah. There's another reference there to all the framed Irish players' jerseys he has in his place in Killybegs. You know, you can just imagine he's a football fan that has made it.
Yeah, because he mentions bonding with Neville over being a United fan, and there are pictures. You know, there are pictures that knocking around of him wearing United jerseys in his teens, like while watching the Killybegs GAA team and stuff. Like, he was a huge United fan, and he was very strongly linked with a move for them to them before the broken leg, which is a shame. Like, I think Everton is a great club in so many ways. Like, it's a club that suits his personality, but I'd love to have seen him challenged at a Champions League club and in the Champions League, you know.
Yeah, there was one thing, Mick, you mentioned when you came in here as well. Just a piece with Paul Rowan and Ronan Curtis.
Yeah, it's a nice little piece actually by Paul. Just it's just more, it's like a little profile, I guess. With he has spoken to Ronan, who's just scored his 8th goal for Portsmouth and has had a brilliant first season. He's really hit the ground running. Suppose you compare it to like Sean Maguire, who hit the ground running and then suffered a series of injuries, which has held him back. But Curtis, he's already played 47 games this year between Derry City and Portsmouth. It's interesting. Again, after the Northern Ireland match, speaking to him in the mix zone, and he's kept the English accent. The family moved to Donegal when he was 8, and he's the youngest of 11. But he's
was the youngest of 11.
11, yeah. But he's managed to keep that accent, which it's kind of touched on there. The school of hard knocks he had to come through, I suppose, in playing football as a kid up there with that accent. But obviously very determined. Turned down a move to Sweden with Östersunds. Graham Potter, now in charge of Swansea, was in charge. Potter sold him the vision, but Curtis wasn't impressed with the financial deal. And even though they improved the offer, he decided to hang on and wait to see what came in. And Portsmouth eventually came in. He wanted to be closer to his little daughter, which is fair enough. And it'll be interesting to see. He's made huge progression, and he's spoken to Mick McCarthy already, who's kind of assured him he's going to be involved come March.
He has made a lot of progress, and it's interesting he's spoken to Mick, but it kind of shows the way things have changed, because I remember when Brian Kerr was manager and Lee Trundle was playing really well for Swansea and scoring regularly. And at the time, Swansea were in League One, or I'm not sure if it was even called League One at the time, but I think since then on the Premier League programme and Today FM, I think Brian has talked about this, and he said basically I couldn't pick somebody within the 3rd division. Like, I had to look at him, but now it's happening. We are capping people because that's where we are. I know, like, it's great. Michael Obafemi scored yesterday, and is the youngest Irish goal scorer in top line since '92. So it's great. Hopefully, he can kick on. But you look now, and you say pick Ireland's. Say we play 2 strikers against Gibraltar, pick the 2. Now you don't know who to pick. Like, there's pros and cons with every one of them. Like, and you're taking a punt on every one of them, to be honest. So
Obafemi, from what I've seen in the last couple of months, I've really liked.
Yeah. Well, he's somebody I'd like to trust.
He's really, even though he's short, really physically and fast.
And I have a feeling Mick will start him, because if you go back to, he wasn't afraid to start Robbie Keane at 18. So I think he'll have no qualms of doing it. And particularly the way the fixture list is, with Gibraltar away and Georgia at home as the first 2. They're games you'd expect to win. So if you are going to use them in the campaign, those are the ones. Throw them in rather than have to throw them in.
But at least there's a little chink of light there for us, because Curtis is 22. Obafemi 18. You know, these guys are coming through now, whereas a couple of years ago we were relying on 32-year-olds. You know, we had Shane Long was kind of our youngest kind of striker, and he was getting on. You know,
even 6 months to a year ago, we were kind of going, okay, there's Declan Rice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who else is
yeah,
there?
but we still don't know about these guys. We have to say.
No, you don't.
We don't.
Yeah.
Like,
but they're young.
Yeah, there's reason to be a bit more optimistic, but at the same time, we haven't scored a goal in 4 games. Like, we're coming from a very low base.
To go back to Republic of Ireland of about a few months ago, and staying with Paul Rowan, he is writing also this weekend about Martin O'Neill and how he must, as he says, live down the dinosaur image in order to search for new employment. And
well, Martin was in
very much saying he's going out there. You know, he wants to get back into the game. He's prepared to go to China. Apparently,
he gave a couple of interviews during the week to a couple of his loyalists, shall we call them, in the English press. Guys who've kind of given him backing all the way through, even in the last year for the Ireland matches, which was kind of a bit baffling, I think, for most people. It seemed to be he wasn't to blame for anything, and everybody else was to blame. But I suppose the reward came in a 4-hour chat he had with them. He sat down for a cup of tea and basically said that he's ready to go again. And no surprise that Paul Rowan kind of gives the other argument there. He came up with a very good quote from Randy Lerner. I think you find it
some of these lines in particular I found very interesting. Piece in the Wall Street Journal entitled "The NFL Owner Who Got Chewed Up by English Soccer." It chronicles Lerner's time at Aston Villa from 2006 to 16, for which Martin O'Neill was there for a large chunk of. Just some of the lines in it. It would be very easy to say the Premier League chewed me up and spat me out, but I'd like to think I put my finger down its throat and said, now puke me up.
Interesting.
About as graphic a picture of involvement in the Premier League as I could ever see. And also, O'Neill was manager. He splashed out £130 million, placing the club among the most extravagant in world soccer. And also goes to say, Lerner eventually, cut off the tap when he noticed just the players coming into the club were late 20s on huge salaries, no resale value.
Yeah, British or Irish.
Yeah, British or Irish in that. Yeah, very much in that kind of traditional football, Martin O'Neill style.
The Leicester City.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that's the challenge. Like, I have a feeling he will get another job, because I think I don't think the last year has damaged him in the eyes of those across the water.
Well, he's always been very well connected.
Yeah, and you even see that with English journalists. They still think he did an outstanding job with Ireland. They kind of ignore the decline in the last year. But he has been well connected. That's certainly right. And he did. He was in the frame for the Everton and Stoke jobs. Just not that long ago. So, but there is a big question mark over him, because it's has the game left him behind? Because in his interviews that he gave the last couple of days to Luke Edwards, the Daily Telegraph, and George Corkin and the Times, like, he talks about basically saying stuff like pressing and stuff. No, that stuff has always been there. It's just called something different. Like, I could call it blue collar football or something. But
yeah, blue collar football.
Yeah,
that's the new label.
Yeah, but if it's always there, why wasn't it there with Ireland? Because this is something John Walters has brought up. Like, the kind of football that seems to suit Irish players is kind of aggressive, energetic, in-your-face football. But Ireland was so passive for the last 18 months under O'Neill. Like, it just seemed to be going through the motions, and all this stuff that he sticks to about not announcing the team till an hour before kick-off and all that. I think he has to, if he wants to get back in, he has to change. And I wonder, is he too stubborn to change? Like, I mean, to thrive again. Like, he might get a job, but if he wants to be respected the way he used to be respected, he has to realise that the way he's done things before, that might not, I don't think it works anymore.
He always struck me as stubborn all the way through his Irish tenure. I can't see him changing now. I don't think so. He is what he is, and there probably will be a club that will decide that's for them.
Yeah, and even Rowan throws out a few possibilities. Sheffield Wednesday sacked their manager just the other night. The diehards would still welcome him back at Nottingham Forest as well if either Karanka fails to solve that puzzle. And also, is there another one he mentions there? No, there's just the two of them.
It's interesting because, you know, if you go back to Forrest, and he, you know, famously always speaks about the glory days of Forrest, you know, would he feel like perhaps there's a fear that he could tarnish the image that he's always had there?
I found interesting as well, actually, just in the paragraph above it, in expressing the readiness to work for a sleeping giant, O'Neill has tacitly admitted that he would be prepared to work at a lower level than the Premier League.
Yeah.
He would be prepared to do it.
Yeah.
There's no choice in the matter, I would say.
No.
You know, to be honest.
But you do look like people like Mark Hughes who keep getting jobs. You know, there's who've never done anything spectacular. Like there's guys that just
great networkers.
Yeah, they just seem to be part of the circuit. And I think Martin O'Neill might be part of that as well. That there are quite a lot of clubs out there, and when they're looking for somebody, those are the kind of names they think of. They
Good football men.
Yeah, that's a proper football man.
Proper football man.
Of course, the other question is, does he go in somewhere with Roy?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, because Roy is just an old man shouting at a cloud now. So, like, where's he going to go? Is he just, like, he always derided pundits, but now that seems to be his future.
But
like he's scattergun in what he says as a pundit. Like you would never get anything out from him. Like, how do you get the best out of Paul Pogba? It's just about, he talks about character and going and turning into tackles and attitude and spirit. The same old stuff all the time, and having to go at modern players.
You just have to wonder as well, will O'Neill take stock after what happened with Harry Arter and kind of go, you know, was that the beginning of the end here, you know? There probably wasn't. He should have went after the Denmark game 2 Novembers ago. But, you know, has he sat back now and kind of gone, whoa, that wasn't right, what happened there, you know? And am I opening myself for more controversy if I keep faith with Roy?
The most telling part of that piece is the headline. O'Neill must live down dinosaur image and search for employment. And he has a dinosaur image now. You know, what's seen as the way forward now is like Bielsa at Leeds. Even though Bielsa is might be the exact same age as O'Neill, but he's seen as a modern manager. O'Neill isn't. O'Neill is seen as a 1990s manager.
To move on slightly from that over onto rugby. Today's Sunday Independent. All the Sunday Independent writers, they're talking about our moments that made 2018. So you have all the usual writers, Neil Francis and Brendan Fanning talking about the rugby. Joe Brolly is talking about his favourite Gaelic football moments of the year. You know, Eamon Sweeney, the Irish hockey team. Dermot Gilleese talking about Tiger Woods finding himself again and things like that. And just to one that I think all three of us actually found quite interesting was Neil Francis's one. Because as he is one to do, he's making definitive statements here.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with them or not, it is one hell of a definitive statement. But he's talking about Johnny Sexton's kick to beat France in Paris, and I think the paragraph that really stands out and is the one that you kind of alerts you straight away. Ireland's 42-phase series in Paris back in February, leading up to Jonathan Sexton's match-winning drop goal, was not only the greatest sporting moment in 2018 in Irish international team sport, but of all time on this island. And we all actually said, when we read this initially, we went, don't know about that.
It does jar with you big time, yeah.
In fairness, whether or not you agree with it by the end, he elaborates on it well. Yeah. He makes his argument well.
It's a really well-written piece. It's so because we've all read pieces about the drop goal.
And personally, I hate these arguments over what is the best thing that's happened or the best sport or the best team and all these. Like, I absolutely hate these. For me, it's all about what was your favourite or something like that. But
he makes a good point that, you know, it's kind of a definitive end. What happens? It's not like a goal. It's not like Ray Houghton's goal in Stuttgart.
It was the 42 phases of it to get to the goal.
But it was the final moment of the game, and it decided the game.
Yeah,
I guess it was the full stop.
Yeah, no, I think he makes a brilliant case, because when I read that sentence, I thought, you know, this is like the people's game stuff again. They were saying that everybody I meet says rugby is the greatest game in the world.
As I said, I hate these arguments. I hate these arguments. And when I read that paragraph, I went, "Oh my God, we're going to have to do this."
But he just goes through. He puts it into context. You know, of what a drop, basically the impact of other drop goals and other great moments in Irish sport, and then he just goes through the detail of what led up to Sexton making the final contact with the ball, and he makes a really strong case for it, I have to say. And it's interesting because, like, you guys would cover the Six Nations well. You know, when you're on the Six Nations beat, depending on the game, the same things are said often in the run-up. Like if you play in England, somebody said, if it was Tiddlywinks, we'd want to beat them. They throw out the same line. But before the first game, people always say, you can't win the Six Nations in the first weekend, but you can lose it. But this time around, Ireland did win it in the first. That moment won the Six Nations. It won the Grand Slam. Even though it was the first game, they never looked back. Like it set the tone. After that, they just... straight down the middle. No, there was no looking back. Pinned back the ears and they went.
I do think back kind of to that moment and kind of go, when you see not just how the Six Nations went after that, but summer tour to Australia, the November series beating the All Blacks.
Absolutely,
What would they have gone on to do this year? They could have gone on, won all the rest of those matches anyway. But it's just interesting to think, like,
well, you don't know, like,
how much would have changed on that kick of a ball.
Like if he'd missed the kick, would that have planted a couple of doubts in his
would Leinster have gone on? And
who knows? Because, you know, like he did talk before about the kick he missed that might have ended up beating the All Blacks a few years ago. You know, it did haunt him for a fair while. Well, you know, so
well, the funny thing about that was
a sliding doors moment.
And the other sliding doors moment was that France had a kick with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I think he might reference that actually.
It's a fairly simple kick as well, actually.
Yeah. Anthony Ballot. Yeah, he does mention it in the 77th minute, I think.
There's a couple of paragraphs. There's one that stood out here as well. It's just
Brendan Fannin.
To beat France, a formidable rugby nation of 70 million people in their own backyard when they had the game won, is a very un-Irish thing to do. Our DNA normally tells us that there is comfort to be had in moral victories, and that is one thing as well. Like, you know, trailing those last couple of minutes, France had missed a kick,
but I don't think that
was your out.
I don't think it would have been a moral victory because we were on top in that game. And then we let it slip. Teddy Thomas.
Yeah, true. But even just the notion of Ireland digging deep.
Yes.
To snatch the victory from the jaws of defeat. To win the game they shouldn't have won.
The other thing about that, you know, you can go through the different things that happened in the move, the cross kick to Earls, Ian Henderson taking the initial 22 dropout when it was meant for Fergus McFadden. But the fact that Sexton went down with cramp about 10 seconds or 20 seconds before he actually took the kick. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Hey, there's a couple of, there's a bit there. He said, at this stage, it's probably important to mention Peter O'Mahony and CJ Stander, who both carried 7 times.
Yeah.
This, when you're out of gas, is called courage.
Yeah.
I like that. I know people sometimes bristle when words like courage are used in sporting context and stuff, but like it does, to have the sheer, you know, the cojones to do that.
Yeah.
7 times when the ball, you know, this is on the line.
And when I was reading that as well, I couldn't help but think of last night with Leinster as well.
But you have 42 phases again.
Yeah. And at 3 o'clock, James Downey is going to be coming in talking about rugby with us, and he would have been playing for Northampton when Ronan O'Gara scored that drop goal after 41 phases at Thomond Park in 2011. I'm very interested to hear. Obviously, we're talking about from the offensive side, Ireland having the ball, but just how mentally and physically draining it is to defend for those 41 phases and to make sure you can't give away the cheap penalty because it's a one-score game.
Yeah, the levels of concentration.
A penalty means 3 points and the match is over.
Yeah, like that's what, like when you're utterly exhausted and after that that level of concentration, it's hard to fathom. No, because the Sunday Indo, it wasn't one of their best editions because a lot of it is kind of review of the year and it's gone over, not through any fault of theirs, but it's gone through a lot of stuff that's been going through that people have been going through a lot over the last few weeks because there's been so many reviews. But I think that Neil Francis is the standout piece from it, and I like Brendan Fanning's as well, who just gives a different slant on it, on more a journalist point of view, like how often you hate those kind of moments when you're on deadline. But this time it was all
usually like a team to be 2 or 3-0 up, or rather than the 1-1.
We don't pretend to present this job as real work, which is not to say it doesn't have its moments of acute stress.
Well, I mean, I was there in the Stade de France that night, and I've slightly mixed feelings about it all because about 20 minutes to go, I had to go back down to the press room. I wasn't getting the connection. Again, you're writing against a deadline, and I just felt it would just be better to finish it in the press room, and all of a sudden you're watching it on the screen. So I was there, but I wasn't really there as he kicked it over. Yeah. So I always regret not being in the stand itself.
As journalists, for newspapers in particular, is there one great Irish sporting moment that for you will forever be this horrific rewrite
Oh, rewrite.
Or rewrite.
Yeah.
Oh.
The one that everyone absolutely loves, but you will always just associate with utter pain and stress.
Well, not an Irish one, but I covered the Champions League final in 2005. And because that was because of the time difference, I think it kicked off at Irish time, or did it kick off an hour later than normal here or something? I can't remember, but it was very late in deadline anyway because obviously the extra time penalties. But at half time, when Liverpool were 3-0 down, I thought this is at least as straightforward.
Sure.
So you had a lot of it written. You started writing then just basically this shows how far behind Liverpool are and where they need to be, blah, blah, blah. And then when they get a goal back, you kind of revise. And then when it goes 3-2, you're suddenly thinking, uh-oh, this could take a big rewrite. And then 3-3, you have to do it. But after that, you're kind of going, where do you go with this? Because you don't know what's going to happen. Particularly it goes the extra time and the penalties. Like you don't know how to fix it on. Like I've never read the piece back because I think I'd be afraid to they're just all over the shop. From an Irish point of view, I'm not sure. Probably the Henry handball or the Henry handball could have been.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rewriting involved in that because it was a brilliant Ireland performance for a lot of it, and then it just became all about the handball. So the whole stuff.
Well, I would have thought that the All Blacks snatching victory from defeat that time. It was 5 years.
At least that was early enough in the afternoon.
Yeah, I suppose.
You weren't hitting 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, well, that's very true.
It had to go in right on that second.
That's very true.
Yeah. It's one of the good things about being in radio.
Just one of the yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The big bucks.
One of the things about the was this the greatest ever moment? The one struck me potentially was Seamus Darby's.
Yeah, and that was something he did actually mention as well. It was
it's in the Michael Foley
Foley
documentary if you want to go into that. But I thought in terms of that was a full stop in a way. And what it stopped in itself, the 5 in a row, that was momentous. But it is hard to argue against that drop kick. It was just historic and dramatic.
Yeah, and you did mention just before you came in as well, Dennis Walsh is writing about it. It's a documentary happening this weekend, I believe. Is it?
Next Friday, yeah.
Yeah, next Friday. Was it called?
Players of the Faithful.
Players of the Faithful. And I would obviously Mick Foley is involved in it as well.
Yeah,
King's September. One of the great Irish books.
Yeah, definitely one of the top 4 or 5, I would think. It tells an incredible story with really, really good interviews with all the people involved. And this story, because I saw trailers for this, and I did wonder, like, why are they doing it now? And it's something Dennis mentions that normally these things are done around anniversaries, but you can see the timing because of Dublin. Like, Dublin are trying to do what Kerry did, so it's perfect timing in a way. And there's good people like Mick Foley is one of the talking heads on it, and so is Paul Rouse, who is absolutely excellent, and who is always very insightful.
Have you seen it?
No, I've I've seen clips of it, and I've read a few pieces about it. But like Paul managed Offaly briefly this summer, and he'd very much know the county, and like. Even in terms of population, no county with a population as small as Offaly has won the Football All-Ireland since then. And they've also won Hurling All-Ireland. Like, it's a remarkable county.
You also forget, the piece reminded me that they came so close in the years coming up to it. Like, it was no fluke.
Yeah.
They were building and building and building.
Yeah, they were building, but at the same time, like at 75, when O'Dwyer's Kerry won their first All-Ireland, they were in Division 4. Like the 2 or 3 years before they came to it, they were building all the time. And there's a few interesting lines in there, like they kept playing them Kerry in challenge matches, and they were getting hammered all the time. And eventually, I think he mentions somebody from the county board asked Eugene McGee, the manager, like, why are you doing this? He says, the more we play them, eventually, the more we learn about them, eventually we're going to learn more about how to beat them. And they did. And it was like that moment, like there's a famous photograph of it when you just see the ball going into the net, like just over Charlie Nelligan, he's bending back. Like it's a stunning photograph, and it's his celebration, just jumping like a lunatic is one of the great celebrations.
Yeah, the start is very good. In one of the sorry, was it? Oh yeah, an interview excavated from the RT archives. In one of them, RT's GAA correspondent Mick Dunn is standing in a field with Offaly's veteran keeper Martin Furlong. What about this great Kerry team, says Dunn. Furlong pauses for a couple of seconds, looks away as if the answer he wants to give has been detained by the thought police and heavily interrogated. Then he looks at Dunn again and smiles. Well, he says quietly, they have to be beaten. Do you think they'll beat them, says Dunn, issuing the kind of follow-up question that would have a White House intern lunging for the microphone. Yes, says Furlong evenly. So it was there. They were confident.
Yeah, and he mentions, or it's mentioned as well, how you can make comparisons between Dublin as well. That there's an old clip of Mick Dunn interviewing Eugene McGee, and Eugene McGee saying, I suppose they're the nearest professional side that you can get in Gaelic football. They're the nearest we've ever come to professionalism. Whenever Kerry want money, they can get it.
Oh, and my God.
I think Ewan McKenna wrote that about Dublin 20 times.
You've written it a few times as well, I think.
I love the Dubs. Every house should have them.
There is, just below that as well.
Sorry, go on, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, just to touch on that we were talking about this outside, that there's actually, Jim Gavin obviously got his contract extension.
And very little on it, yeah.
There's 2 pages in the Mail.
Yeah.
Shane McGrath and Michael Clifford both speak about it, and that's really it.
Because it's odd, because because the GAA, the change of the season, the inter-county season finished up earlier than normal. So other than club stuff, there hasn't been a huge amount happening. But this week there's actually been a few big stories. When you look at the Park O'Keefe finances, the financial problems in Galway, and even Jim Gavin agreeing those extra 2 years, I thought there'd be more on the Sundays. I'm quite surprised by that. I think often, I know this weekend and next weekend, anytime people are knocked out of their normal routine, newspaper sales suffer a bit. And I think people sometimes are reluctant to throw good stuff away, like they'll wait till January or whatever. Yeah. But I would have thought there would have been a bit more.
It's like good albums aren't usually released up to Christmas.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Fair point, yeah.
Can I still say albums?
LPs, 78s.
But yeah, just on that, like you mentioned, there probably is a lack of GA stories out there. There was one, I suppose Michael Foley is writing about the Páirc Uí Chaoimh situation and just a complete lack of clarity over the whole thing.
There's nice colour in it, isn't there? But,
because he brings in the Galway stuff as well about misuse of county board credit cards, including more than 45 grand expenses incurred by board officers, poor practice around gate receipts at various venues, failure to pay over 400,000 in All Ireland final ticket revenue until last month, and then the kind of murkiness around the costs of Park and the takeover basically of running the stadium of Croke Park by Croke Park for a couple of years. That there was a happy clappy statement issued by the GAA last week that everything is great and Cork are happy and the GAA are happy, but I don't know how they can be. No, things always run over cost in Ireland when it comes to building. I don't know why, but
it comes down, I think, to Billy Coleman from Ballinahasig caught the bouncing ball and went forward a few more yards. Is any of that in McKenna interview in the Examiner true? Which is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
really, because there was an interview with Peter McKenna from Croke Park saying that there was an overrun finance. Was it 110?
And it still just goes back around to the GAA, the siege mentality.
Yeah, but do you know? In many ways, the GAA isn't fit for purpose because it's taken on a lot of the trappings of professionalism. In that you have this professional staff in Croke Park, you have the likes of Peter McKenna,
enormous amounts of money being involved.
And because even now I saw the Donegal. I was reading a report of the Donegal Convention a few weeks ago, and they've a lot of they've quite substantial debts, and for the first time ever they spent over €1 million on their inter-county teams, and trying to raise that money is very difficult. But basically, what the problem is, you're dealing with professional levels of finance, but it's been run by amateurs. Like you do have the likes of Peter McKenna who are full-time pros, but most of the people on county boards are still volunteers who came through clubs. They're not equipped to deal with this kind of thing. They really aren't. They don't have the expertise. And I think that's a massive challenge for the GAA, that down the road, do they have to employ, the likes of, Tomas Quinn, what's Tomas' title? As a commercial manager in Dublin or something?
Yeah.
You will need people like this with that kind of expertise, because other people are getting in over their heads.
Well, you're going to
more and more
going to see Croke Park having to intervene in all of these things. That's going to stretch them, their staff.
We are running out of time. Is there any other little pieces you want to bring up?
Could I just mention the horse racing just briefly? I don't think either of us are turf aficionados as such, but it's coming into the festive meat season, and it's very
Sean
busy.
Flanagan was one you were mentioning.
Yeah. Just it's a very interesting piece by Dennis Walsh that basically it's one of these kind of from nowhere to redemption kind of things where he. I think 6 years ago he had he didn't renew his riding licence, and he was out in Australia. He didn't really know where he was going. Eventually realised this is what I do. And he wasn't picking up enough rides. He wasn't picking up rides that could actually win races, and he was in a kind of an eternal cycle of failure. But he persevered, and it's turned around now. He's now with Noel Meade. It's a really interesting story, actually.
Yeah, that's page 11 of the Sunday Times. And there was one little bit, Ruby Walsh talking to...
he spoke to a few of the Sunday journalists, I think, to John Brennan and in the Sunday World, and also Philip Quinn has a lovely piece about it.
That was it, in the Mail.
In the Mail, where he kind of focusing in on falling, the science of falling, and Ruby explains that he's happy to be a jump jockey despite possibly getting injured once every 13 or 14 rides. That's the average, apparently. That on the flat, they get more severe injuries because you can't actually put your hand down when you're falling. You fall so fast off the horse on the flat that you basically fall on your head or on your neck or on your back, and or your face. You don't have time to put your hand down.
The fall is natural haunt. It's as you're landing. It's a slower fall.
It's just interesting, I didn't know that. It's interesting.
There's one other, you pointed it out to me earlier, Neil, but on the back of the Sunday Times, George Cruz. And Dom Day, who play rugby at Saracens together, but they've set this company up selling CBD, which is a derivative of hemp, which is a plant in the cannabis family. And last autumn it was removed from the WADA list, the World Anti-Doping Agency list of banned substances. And some British athletes are using it, but not many have spoken openly about it because it's got misleading associations with marijuana, but it's a separate plant. But apparently it's very beneficial as a painkiller. There's an anti-inflammatory, and it helps with sleep problems and anxiety. And it's quite interesting because of all the stuff about, that's come up around the medicalisation.
Yeah, and as Dave says, CBD has helped us to get off prescription drugs, which we've been on for most of our careers, anti-inflammatories and painkillers.
Yeah.
And
it mentions as well, I think, that it's taking off in the States.
There was one here. In the United States, CBD is becoming well known in sport. The former New York Jets NFL player Marvin Washington takes it daily and is on the board of the CBD company Sodiol. He estimates the number of athletes using the substance in the US is now in triple figures across sports from American football to basketball and hockey. But it's a small little piece, just the Cruz and Day going into business together. They're launching, it's called 4-5 CBD. I guess that's in reference to two of them second rows, something like that maybe.
Yes.
I'd be curious about the reasoning for why WADA took it off the list and why it was on the list originally. So I'd like to see that clarified. There's no mention of that.
Yeah, very interesting piece though. And
Donald Trump has allowed for it to happen, I think, hasn't he? I think he signed off on the farmers' bill or something. It's part of the farmers' bill.
Oh, yeah.
Industrial medicinal cannabis is
probably something we're going to be talking a lot more about in the next few years, maybe. But interesting to see how it goes. But that's about it for us on the paper review. Actually, we've gone way over time. Kieran Cunningham of the Irish Daily Star and Michael Scully of the Irish Daily Mirror, thanks for stopping by. Have a great Christmas.
Same to you.
Christmas. Thank you.
We'll be back after the break.
Off the ball on News Talk. News Talk Breakfast.
We've been getting a number of texts in here for you, Kieran, calling you, of all things, a snowflake.
Yeah, just a few. What an insufferable pair. Now with Kieran the Snowflake Cuddihy having joined News Talk Breakfast. Kieran Cuddihy showing true snowflake traits this morning. Would Kieran ever just go get a life and stop being such a snowflake? Millennial. Typical Kieran Cuddihy snowflake garbage as usual. Snowflake, 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 snowflake.
Well, 'tis the season for snowflakes after all.
News Talk Breakfast
in association with AIR
with Shane Coleman and Kieran Cuddihy.
I am not a snowflake.
Weekday mornings at 7 on News Talk.
Be safe this winter. Give yourself the best chance when driving in winter conditions by checking your tyres are the correct pressure. And make sure they're changed before they reach the minimum legal tread depth of 1.6 millimetres. Motor Tips, brought to you by Volkswagen Service. Book a service online at volkswagen.ie.
'Tis the season to be fabulous at Liffey Valley, with more than 80 stores, including